David, welcome to Brand DIY.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
For all the brand DIYers listening out there, my special guest today is David Reeve. And I'm not going to do one of those cornball things where David is a man's man and a ladies' man and he's worked at all these top 10 companies and all that garbage. So I'm not going to do all that. I'm just going to launch right into the conversation. It has been quite a while. You and I haven't really talked since we were trying to launch that joint brand culture venture together, and we got to know each other. You released Unleashed Culture, a great book that I wrote a lie for, just like you wrote a lie for my book. Didn't see it coming, but the book did really, really well. And since we last spoke, you have been CEOing and COOing and launching a whole bunch of stuff. So I thought it'd be just invaluable to bring you onto the Brand DIY group and talk about culture and brands and something very, very useful. You've got 6 steps or 6 things that people have to remember if they're trying to incorporate culture into their brand. And I'm going to shut up now. Say hello.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here. And thanks for making me part of your day. Yeah, when I was speaking with Marc a bit earlier, we were just talking about, what's maybe some wisdom I could impart on people, some foundational elements when it comes to building your brand for all you serial entrepreneurs out there, or even people that might be entrepreneurs as well, people that work for companies but are very entrepreneurial in their spirit. And over the years, as we built up our brands, we've been blessed to build 3 of the larger brands in Canada in their respective field. Plus, we've, of course, launched a lot of our own brands as well and worked with over 100 different brands on the consulting side. As I started to study these brands, what made great cultures and what made great brands work, there was 6 foundational elements. And I thought I would just share those with you today and see how you could apply those to your business.
You can do that, but first of all, you got to tell us about the brands that you worked on. I mean, you've got some pretty cool stuff in your roster.
Yeah, well, there's a few. One of them, of course, I was blessed to help architect a brand called Nurse Next Door across Canada. So I joined them. And at the time we just had the Vancouver location. And when I left, it was a franchise model. And when I left, we had 65 locations in Canada and we were entering into the United States. And so that was really a great experience working for those. Got surrounded by some of the best mentors I ever could. Got exposed to some of the coolest business practices. And I'm a big believer in being a student, sitting in the front row and taking notes and mastering what I call R&D, which is rip off and duplicate. And so to everybody out there, I would say become a master of R&D, because you got to think about it. If it's working well somewhere else, there's no harm in borrowing an idea and applying it to your business.
It's funny that you should bring that up, because that comes up again and again in business books. And they talk about adopting a persona where, somebody like Kobe Bryant tries to be Michael Jordan. And they asked him about that. And he goes, yeah, I tried to rip everything off that I saw, knowing that there's no way I could be Michael Jordan. So even if you try to rip it off, you'll never be Michael Jordan. You'll always put the Kobe Bryant imprint on it. So it makes it your own.
Absolutely. But there's a good chance that if it's working somewhere else, it'll work in your industry. And the great thing too is with foundational business elements, they're so transferable from business to business, right?
Right.
So then from the home care, I made a shift into IT, brought a lot of the ideas that we were doing in home care into the IT world, and helped build that into a big national powerhouse. And then just recently, I was believe it or not, I got a call. I was working up in Fort McMurray, being a virtual COO for an IT company, and then I got a call to come down to Vancouver to head up one of the largest personal transportation companies in Canada. They were going through a bit of a change, and they asked me to come in, and so we did that, and up until recently, until of course COVID hit and kind of wiped us out, and so everything's on pause. So we're back now to just lending our advice and helping other brands grow. So,
so now the conversation has actually gone from you giving us advice on how to build a brand to you asking for a job. So if anybody in the Brand DIY network has a job for Dave, this would be a great time to put your hands up.
Sure thing. Yeah, that's great. We love it. But let's jump into these 6 elements that I think your listeners will find very foundational. So the thing about these is, don't worry about where you're at in your journey. If you're just starting out, great. If you're already an established brand, great. If you're a mature brand, great. But what I'm going to give you is 6 elements that will allow you to reflect and pause and maybe go, you know what? Maybe there's a couple of these things we're doing really well, or maybe we're not doing any of these things, or maybe we could incorporate some of these things. But here's kind of what they are. So the first one is, I always tell everyone, when you're running a brand, understand the real role that you play, okay, in running your brand. Now, I know as either a solo entrepreneur or when you're starting out, you're wearing many hats. But one of the hats I don't want you to ever take off is write this down, you are the chief storyteller of your brand. Okay, so one of your titles I want you to give yourself is, I am the chief storyteller of your brand, right?
Right.
There's 2 parts to telling your story, okay? There's the skill side, which everybody tells. Everybody talks about what they do and how they do it, right? So when you log onto someone's website, it's all about what we do and how we do it. But what's equally important, in fact, I think almost more important, is the character side of your brand, okay?
Right.
And because if you take time and tell the character side of your brand, now what you're going to start to do is you're going to start to emotionally hook people into your brand. But everybody forgets about the character side of your brand. So we're going to talk a little bit about today about how to build that character side, okay? So you're the chief storyteller. There's 2 parts to telling your story. There's the skill side and the character side, and you have to tell both of them, okay? That's very, very important. Now, why do you tell your story to the world? You tell your story to the world for 2 reasons. 1, you want to become an attractive brand to do business with. And 2, you want to become an attractive brand to work for. Okay, so those are the 2 reasons. Well, you're only going to be able to do that if you give equal weight to character and skill. Then the 3rd part of telling your story is, what you want to do is you want to create what I call brand ambassadors. Now, you and I can tell our story in a very controlled way. We can do that through PR, social media, our web, our collateral, whatever the case may be, right? That's the story we tell. But what we want to be concerned about is, what is the story that other people are telling about our brand? And those are our brand ambassadors. Okay, and I know from my last opportunity where I was the CEO of this company, if something goes wrong, it can hit social media so fast, right? And that story is getting out there and it's spreading. So remember, number 1, you are the chief storyteller of your brand, and it's so important that you never forget that. So that's the first thing, okay? So your new title.
With the brand ambassadors, there's also an interesting side note. If I tell you my story, that's wonderful. I'm trying to get you to buy something. I have a vested interest. So, it might come across as legit or it might not. But if there's a brand ambassador at work, somebody who likes you just because they like you, and they tell your story, people are going to listen because they don't have a vested interest. The story comes across a lot more authentically.
Absolutely. And everyone loves to tell stories, right? I think Stanford did a study where people remember stories 22 times more than facts alone, right? I'll give you an example. I go to an osteopathy person, it's sort of like for body alignment and everything. Because I'm a fan of hers, I've sent her over 40 people to go because I just tell her story. Her cost of acquisition on that is 0. It's just, and people are trading on my name because they trust me, and they say, well, if Dave's going through it, she must be okay, right? So that's the power of storytelling. But so it becomes very important. So to tell your story effectively, there's 5 parts. So the first part is, what I like to say is, understand the tone of your brand. Now, what I mean by tone is your brand energy. And this is something that a lot of people overlook. They don't even spend any time on thinking, actually, my brand has an energy about it. The way it vibrates, it's life force, it's energy. So often when you're a solopreneur, that brand, you are the brand, so that's also your energy, right? So I'll give you an example. So like at Nurse Next Door, our energy was caring and loving. That was the energy. So we just hired people that wanted to care and love, and we just put that out, and it was reflected in our colors with pink and hearts and yellow and things like that. When we built the IT company, our energy was more disruptive, right? We wanted to be more disruptive, and so we were a little high energy, a little more disruptive. Our colors were black and green, and we used words like monomaniacal and things like that. So first thing I would say to everyone listening today is, understand your brand's energy and your tone, and what is that? Because you can't be, I'm a caring, loving brand, but then your colors are black and white and you're edgy, and the energy, it just doesn't match up. And a lot of people think, why would I even care about this? It's actually huge. It's
Right.
actually how you conduct yourself in the marketplace. So
That's also why it's super important if there's issues inside your company, if there's a company of more than one person, if there's an issue and people start behaving bummed out, we feed off that. We smell that. People smell fear, they smell depression, they smell frustration so quickly.
Totally, and that's a good segue into the next two things as to why that could maybe happen. So again, chief storyteller, your brand, understand your brand's tone, your brand's energy. I always say have a primary energy and a secondary energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at my brand, Unleash Culture, right? I mean, my two energies there are, one, the first energy is inspiring, and then the second energy is discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because I want to inspire everybody's brands to become more, but also too, I want to instill discipline into their systems and things like that.
Right.
But so that's kind of my approach to the marketplace with my energy. The third piece now is what I call your purpose. And there's a lot of talk out there about discover your why and all these sort of things. A lot of people think it's kind of airy-fairy, but it really isn't. It's why did you get into business? What is your driving force for getting out of bed every day? Why, usually if you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out, there's a real genuine reason. Now, you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and you'll say, why did you start your business? And some of them will say kind of cheekily, well, I couldn't get a job, or I want to make money, or whatever the case may be. It's much, 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 much more, it's way deeper than that, right? Give you an example. When I started Unleash Culture, when I started Unleash Culture, my purpose is discover greatness within. I wanted to work with brands and help them discover greatness within. Mm-hmm. My other company called Unleash Dreams, our purpose is empowering extraordinary lives. That's the reason why we exist. So your purpose is the foundation of your character. Now, why do you need a purpose? Well, when times are not going so well, right, it allows you to reflect on why you got in business, okay? And when times are outrageous and the money's rolling in, then it keeps you humble, right? Now, my rule for discovering your purpose...
Let me just interrupt you. I'm a chronic interrupter, but it also seems vital that unless you know where you're going and what the good Lord put you on earth to do, it's very easy to follow. Today, there's more shiny objects than ever before. And it's so easy to chase shiny new objects because everything promises to make your business so much better. All you have to do is franchise or remarket or start carrying, become an affiliate, and you're going, oh, it's all so good. And then suddenly you forget who the hell you are and why you're making no money.
Totally. You're exactly right. One of the hallmarks of entrepreneurship is chasing shiny objects, right? And maybe you and I could do another one of these sessions down the road where I'll put some insight and wisdom in how to kill shiny object chasing, right?
I think that would be a wonderful, I'm going to book you for that podcast as well, because I think that is an awesome topic. We can't hear enough of that.
Yeah, and shiny object chasing inside organizations, you nailed it, kills culture faster than anything, right? Mm-hmm. But your purpose is the foundation of your character. And now here's my rule for purpose. It must be, if you're working with me on this, it must be 4 words or less. Now people go, how do I get it into 4 words? It's easy, okay? You don't need a long mission statement. Like I never met an entrepreneur in my life that, woke up in the middle of the night and shook his or her spouse and said, honey, I want to start a company to increase shareholder value through profitability while maintaining environmental standards. All this mission BS. 4 words or less. Nurse Next Door, here's what our purpose was: making lives better. That's the business we were in. We just happened to do it through home care. The IT company, we were in the business of creating peace of mind. That's it, right? My business, Unleash Culture, discover greatness within, right? That's it. That's the business I'm in. So that's my approach along with my energy now. I'm anchoring myself on this, which is telling the character side of my story. So at Nurse Next Door, all we did was hire people that wanted to make lives better. All we did every day was get up and make lives better. Mm-hmm. It was simple. It's a simple business. Just go make lives better.
It's funny, but if you do that too, it's so generic, make lives better. What do you mean? But then they walk into the company and they start to understand from absorbing all the touch points going, it means this and this and this. And But you don't have to say all these things all up front.
No, it's not. And so this becomes your philosophy about how you're going to approach your business. So we've got our chief storyteller. We know our brand energy. We've discovered our purpose. And so I'm going fairly quickly today so we can, people can reach out later. We can circle back. The fourth piece then is understanding your core values. Okay. And values are very, very important. They're what I call the fabric of your character. They're your lighthouse. They'll keep you off the rocks. They allow you to make really informed decisions. So I say to anybody that I ever work with, as long as the decision does not violate our purpose or our values, it's a right decision, right? Even if, quote unquote, it ended up being the wrong decision, from a financial perspective, as long as we didn't violate our purpose and values, I'm totally cool with that. So your core values, my rule of thumb is you have 4 core values. Only need 4. Okay. Now why 4? Because if you have 4, they're easy to remember. And if they're easy to remember, they're easy to breathe life into. It's just like your purpose. If you can undo it in 4 words or less, you remember it. So your first value is around is around people. Always have one around people. Okay. At Nurse Next Door, our value was simple. Admire people. That's it. My unleashed culture one around people is inspire people. Now, how you do it is up to you. You don't need a big narrative about telling someone how to inspire someone. At Nurse Next Door, how we inspired someone as a senior was hold the door open for a senior, give them a hug, buy them a cup of coffee in the lineup, whatever you feel you want to admire them. So the first one is people. The second one is service, because whether you like it or not, you're in the service industry. There's some component of service, right? And so, have a service value. Again, keep it really short and simple. The third one is introspection and improvement. I think a hallmark of any brand is being introspective and continually improving themselves. And then the fourth one is sort of the sandbox that you play in. Mine is a catalyst for creating amazing cultures. That's my value. And so every day, at the end of the day, I can reflect and say, did I live my purpose? And did I live all my values? The other thing you want to always do too is that whenever you're doing any of your social, your marketing, things like that, you always want to weave in your purpose and or one of your values. We do this a lot when we run job ads. Like if I was to run an ad for Unleashed Culture, have you ever wanted to work for a brand that helped other brands discover greatness within and live the following 4 core values? These are, again, I'm showing the character side of my brand in my recruiting ads and everything that I do and all my social, because again, when people engage your brand, Marc, there's a level of understanding that you've got skill, right? If I look at WestJet and Air Canada, I'm not so concerned about all the skill they have because I just assume they know how to fly planes, right? Why I choose one over the other is because one of them has somehow emotionally hooked me into their brand. Both use the same planes, both take off at the same time, both same destination, same everything. But for whatever reason, there's some brand loyalty to one over the other. That's because they've appealed to me on an emotional level versus the other one. It's not because I think they have more skilled pilots or things like this. So don't spend as much time telling everyone about your skill. Get back to the character side because that's going to hook them in. So your purpose and your values hook them in. And again, they're also a really good reflection point. So 4 values, again, people, service, introspection and improvement, and then whatever your sandbox is. The fifth piece of all this is what I call create heroes. Okay, so now that we know you're the storyteller, you got your tone, your purpose, and your values. Now you want to go out and create your heroes, which another word for them are your brand ambassadors. So think of all the people that you touch, your suppliers, your vendors, your clients, your team members, your partners, whatever it is, and think to yourself, how can I make them raving fans of my brand? How can I create heroes out of them? How can I make them look phenomenal in their respective marketplace? How can I support them through my products and services to make them better, right? Because when you think about it, if I'm hiring you to help me accelerate my brand, really the role you're playing is you're making my brand look better in the marketplace, right? That's the mindset you go into it with. So create those heroes, create brand ambassadors, and get people telling the right story out there for you, right? Because like you said earlier, which was a good point, other people's validation of your services is so much stronger than, you know, you doing some marketing or whatever the case may be. PR is so much more stronger than marketing, right?
Now, I'm a small business person. I just went through this with somebody. They say, how do I get other people telling my story for me? And what I said to them was, well, who has given you money in the past? Either you've worked for them as an employee, or you've worked in as a service person, given them services, and they cut you a check. If they like you, the first question I always ask in research is, why did you give me money again? You know, and if they've given you money once, it could be a mistake. But if they give you money again, they might actually like something. And I say, just go out there and ask them.
Yeah.
You know, why did you give me money again? And oh, by the way, if you gave me money, are there other folks that you know, like yourself, who might like this? And could you tell them? And how would you tell them, by the way? You know,
Exactly.
you just have to put on your journalist hat and go, I'm not going to be scared to ask.
No, and you know, one of the questions I always say to all my leadership team members that I work with, and is, you know, we'll sit down in a meeting, and you know, once a month I'll sit down with them, and I'll do this with clients too, but with my team, I'll say, okay, guys, what's one thing I can do to become a more effective leader, right? Mm-hmm. And they'll tell me, and I just go, thank you, right? And you're right, you cannot be afraid to get this sort of feedback. So I'll say to clients, what's one thing I could do differently to become more effective, you know, in running, helping you with your business? And then just go work on that. The feedback will be phenomenal, right? Because now you're building that relationship, right? Mm-hmm. The other thing too is, to everyone out there, is treat every complaint as a golden opportunity, right? Because if someone complains to your brand, what it is they're so emotionally invested in your brand, good or bad, that they're taking the time to give you some feedback, right? Embrace that. You know, we have in all the brands we've started, anytime we receive a complaint, it has to be dealt with within 15 minutes, right? Because speed at which you get back to the person is key, right? They've taken the time, they're upset about something, 15 minutes, you're acknowledging it, right? Mark, I understand we've upset you. That doesn't sit well with me. Let's fix it. Mm-hmm. Here's what we're going to do, right? You've acknowledged it, you've diffused it, but take that feedback and then say, okay, guys, this is the feedback the market is giving us. Let's make the appropriate thing. So you're right. There's nothing wrong with asking questions and taking complaints, but build heroes. Do not in any way take these people for granted, which leads me to the final piece. The sixth piece is build an end-to-end experience. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now this is a big trap a lot of brands fall into. A lot of brands think in a very transactional mindset. Right. Okay, they get into, right. Forget that. You do that, you're gonna be out of business sooner than you think. Everybody that engages your brand, either as a supplier, a vendor, a team member, a client, they have a life cycle with you. Okay. Now think in terms of this. There's a starting point of the life cycle and there's an ending point of the life cycle. And between those 2 points, there's what I call touch points. What I tell every single brand is map out what all those touch points are and then build phenomenal experiences around each one of those touch points. So let's go back to the thing about complaints. All right. So obviously if someone complains, that's a touch point. How we respond to it within 15 minutes, another touch point. What we say on the call and how we deal with it is an experience. How we do the follow-up is an experience. How we do the follow-up after that is an experience. So if you're hiring someone, how you place your ads is part of the experience, right? How you answer the phone, your initial interview questions, all your onboarding, your training, all these things. Build an end-to-end experience. Does it take some time? It does. But I'm telling you that if you do that, then you get consistency and you get the same look and feel every single time. That's going to emotionally anchor people into your brand because that's what people are looking for. They're looking for a consistent experience, right? Not a transaction. You know, we've all bought things, felt things, gone into retail shops, whatever the case may be, and we're just completely underwhelmed because we just feel like a transaction, right? But those
not only that, but you know, I'm reading this great book called Insight Selling, and the big insight in insight selling is that as products grow more monetized, this whole idea of selling a solution to a client. Well, you and everybody else is selling a solution to the client. So the solutions are actually being demonetized, and the person selling them, the salesperson, the change maker, the brand builder, the CEO entrepreneur, is being up valued or down valued. They're the ones who are bringing the value. They're not just the purveyors of the value anymore. They're not the guys who bring the nice stuff to the party. They're it.
They're it.
You
They're
know,
it.
and
Yeah.
so you're selling pipelines. There's 10 people who sell pipelines, but if you answer the phone on a complaint different.
Yeah, it's the little tiny things that are going to set you apart, right? And, you know, be willing to do all the little things that other companies aren't willing to do. Like if you engage my brand, I still handwrite cards and send them to people, right? I think it's just a nice touch. In fact, what we used to do at Nurse Next Door and the brands we built, if someone toured our office, we'd take a photograph of them, right? Go up to Shutterfly, upload it up to Shutterfly. There's a nice card on there. Boom, they get a picture of themselves visiting the office. There's little tiny things. When we used to screw up at Nurse Next Door, and we used to send out, our way of saying sorry was we used to send out a 4-pound fresh baked apple pie from a company called Acme Humble Pie. And the person would come in a little tiny crate and the person would open it and say, "We're sorry, we're going to eat some humble pie." Right. And that was, so, you know, find a little signature item that when you screw up, you can send to somebody, right? These are memory makers. These are part of the experience. Sending someone an email going, "Oh yeah, that shouldn't have happened. Sorry. Oops, my bad." That dog doesn't hunt anymore. You got to be, but it's these little tiny things. The problem is everyone's so busy now. We got ADD. They think this stuff is corny. It's not. It's the little things that are going to separate you from the pack. So just in summary, you're the chief storyteller of your brand, right? Find your tone and your energy. If you haven't done that, you got to do that. Reflect that in your attitude, your colors, everything. Find your purpose, 4 words or less, okay? Find your 4 core values: people, service, introspection, improvement, the business you're in. Create your heroes, your brand ambassadors, and build an end-to-end experience. Those are what I would call the 6 foundational elements of anchoring your brand to make sure that the character side of your story is being told as effectively as the skill side of your story, right? You do that, you've got a great foundation for success. And that's all we've ever done in building any of our award-winning brands. You know, the brands I've mentored over the years now, we're up to 98 business awards.
Business awards, yeah.
Yeah, for those brands. And it's nothing really, it's not me, it's the brands doing it. You know, I set a goal a number of years ago to you know, I thought it'd be kind of cool to do 100 awards. Like that'd be really cool. We're at 98 right now. And I tip my hat to all those brands because they've taken this information and they've just applied it in whatever fashion they think. So I think the people listening today will get, if you focus on these things and do some reflection, it'll make you pause and go, you know what, we're doing some stuff good, but maybe there's a chance for an opportunity for us to just, you know, reflect a little bit and slow down a little bit and work on some of these.
Well, you know, we went through this pretty quick, but
yeah.
I mean, we also have Unleash Culture, which I am going to be linking in the post that goes along with this. And also, you did a terrific podcast where you went into more detail on each of these steps. So I'm going to be linking to that, so folks can have a listen on that as well. Yeah. So it's a win-win all around. So, but I just want to say thank you again for coming by, and for everyone who is listening in the Brand DIY group. Dave's a member here, and he is open to answering questions. If you have any questions, just dial him up in the Brand DIY group, and he's got a ton of insight and a ton of battle experience to share. So thanks again, my friend.
It's always good to see you. I'm a big fan of yours, and I appreciate all the work you're doing. It's inspiring, and we'll probably chat with you a little sooner than later now that we're connected.
Awesome, amigo. Talk to you soon.
All right, partner. Take care.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.